morning, world. This is Sister Doctor in Namibia, still on this Global African Research Trot, getting a sense of the lived experience of Africans on the continent and the diaspora. I'm very fortunate, I'm very blessed, I'm very grateful, I'm humbled by the things I've learned so far. This morning I'm going on something of a road trip, and I'm fortunate enough to be escorted by Brother King. Can you say good morning and say your name again?
Good morning, Rasmushitu Kwame, here in Namibia. We are just driving out of Windhoek, past Okanja, right through the Namib Desert to the Atlantic.
That's really phenomenal, that we're going to drive through a desert to the Atlantic, which is a place of great remembrance. I don't want to go into the story of that right now, but just to acknowledge that this journey is taking place when Africans come onto the continent, and even when we're in the diaspora, we have to remember that we have a history that is quite traumatizing, actually, quite traumatizing. So as we're journeying, Brother King here is telling me about some of the more recent history, because we talk about these things as if it's a history of hundreds and hundreds of years ago. This history is a living history. It's a history that is affecting and impacting us and those of us who live still, so that our children can remember it. There is a place near Windhoek called, or in Windhoek, I think, is it in Windhoek, called Katatura. So I'm intending to go there at some point and see what has happened and see what is happening still. Brother King, you were telling me how it is that Katatura came to be.
Yeah. Katatura is a result of the 1948, when the apartheid system government in South Africa. We must remember that Namibia was governed by the League of Nations. The Germans came here. They faced fierce resistance from the locals. Went and mobilized. 1884 came. Then they gave each other, okay, you take this part, we take that part. So the Germans were given Southwest Africa, and then the British in South Africa. In South Africa, there were also wars between the British and the Boers, or the Dutch, descendants of the Dutch. So when World War I came, and the Germans were defeated, this one became a sea-mandate kind of territory, governed that way. And what followed thereafter was everything that was happening in South Africa was also applied here. Sometimes they were actually testing some of the systems here and then applying them in South Africa. So in 1948, if I'm correct, the Boers, through so-called elections, took over in South Africa. Under Vervoort, Malan, and all those, devils, if you like. When they took over, immediately they started implementing the separate development policies, which is also referred to as apartheid. So they would say white people must live where, black people must live where. If it's fertile land, then that fertile land automatically must belong to a white person. And if they find that you are living there as a black person, you will be removed. The same with their animals. If they find you, like in South Africa, for example, you were not allowed to have more than 5 animals. The others will be taken away. So here in 1948, what they did was already they started gathering black people together. Blacks used to live where it's called the white area today, white areas, Auckland Park, all those nice areas. That's where blacks used to live. The story is well captured in the founding president's book, Where Others Wavered. The book written by Sam Nujoma, Namibia's first independent president, who was the leader of SWAPO, guerrilla movement that went on to defeat the Boers in 1990. Just back and forth.
And the Boers are the Germans, are it's not the Dutch.
Yeah, the Boers.
Dutch?
The Boers mainly are Dutch stock.
Right.
But for us, Boer, it came to mean anything that's white.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Boer. But they speak a particular language, which is called Afrikaans.
Okay.
I refer to it as African us. Yeah, and that became their language.
Yes.
Trying to, everything that is yours, they take it.
Right.
Even the language that got developed here, then they say it's Afrikaans. So you will not know whether this is an African language or is a white language. You will just see the guy that, okay, this one cannot be African. They must have come from somewhere.
Right. And the Afrikaans language is spoken by, you're saying the Boers.
Yeah, the
Boers. But Africa has languages, indigenous languages. We all have tongues that we have been speaking. So Namibia is in southwest, like southern Africa.
That's
not called South Africa.
No.
But the languages, there are a number of languages here. So how many languages are there?
The language that we have here, I think there are about 10 or 11.
Right.
Yeah. Different languages, but there are some similarities.
Right.
Yeah.
And Afrikaans is nothing like these languages are mother tongues. Have they taken some of it and made it their own, or have they just introduced a completely different language structure?
It's a complete new formation, if you like.
Right.
Nothing to do with Africa.
So does it mean, therefore, that indigenous peoples from this region don't necessarily understand that language because it's formulated in a very different way?
Yeah, like the way it has been, you have to speak that language. You are forced.
Right.
This is actually what led to the Soweto uprising, the 1976 Soweto uprising.
Right.
It was the rejection of Afrikaans, which was used in schools, medium of instruction.
Yeah.
So when you hear about the Soweto uprising in South Africa,
We saw a lot of children.
yes, yeah,
We're so proud of them.
Right.
It was just very different to see children empowered and resisting and saying no.
yeah, this is not,
Children.
yeah,
And the hostility towards children is
Right.
just, to my mind, if the world sees hostility towards children and doesn't do anything, then the world itself has become inhumane. Compassion has left,
right,
because it's one thing for adults to be fighting. It's another thing for not just adults, but females and mothers and elders to be in it. But when you have the children in it,
right.
the hostility hostility towards them. It was really something to see. Of course, we were not seeing everything because it was. It would have been vetted. It would have been filtered through a Eurocentric lens. So we were seeing it through European media. Still, it had a tremendous impact, and it was terrifying. So I'm sure we didn't see the complete nature of the.
No, those guys were ruthless. Even now, it's just that. Yeah, we went to school there. Even when we were doing our junior degrees, we went to school there in South Africa.
Right.
When you finish your college, varsity, really, without being killed or captured or whatever, you are very lucky.
Yes, it's a good day, huh?
You are very lucky.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
The first orientation when you get to university was that don't walk alone.
Right.
Because if the boys find you alone, they take you. And if nobody saw you being taken, that's the end of you.
Yeah.
So it's not easy.
One of the things I sometimes say and think is that if any of our young people in the diaspora, and in the UK specifically, get to and through school without being excluded, pathologized, marginalized, or criminalized in some way, then that in itself is a success. Never mind if you're graduating. If you can get through and still be coherent and compassionate, and pursue your career or some kind of relationship with your community or even yourself, and the Most High, then that in itself is a success, because that's not a joke. There are all these traps, very sophisticated, covert traps that our young people, if they're not properly briefed, will fall foul of, or be captured by. And as you say, if there's no one to see,
you are gone.
You're gone. Or even if people see, because we know people are using cameras nowadays, and even though the camera is there, the perpetrators deny that they did anything.
Right.
Even though the camera witnesses it and the world witnesses it, somehow it's not an offense if it's done by
those people.
So that's so Katatura was created when?
59.
1959.
1959. Before that, there was nothing like Katatura.
So before that, African people lived all over the place, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then the system, the agents of the system. So the system is an oppressive system, and it does this right across the world to African people. But the agents of the system were Dutch, German, or
both. When it comes to oppressing black people, these people always work together.
So they just literally came to people's houses and told them to get out.
Bulldoze the houses to the ground, and then put their stuff, whatever was left, on trucks, dumped in Katatura. This is where you are going to live, as from whatever.
So people's whole history. This is a theme, a trend in terms of the relationship between African people and Europeans, really, because that's why I say English is not my first language, because the polite way we have of articulating the abuse and the horror, it's astounding. It's really astounding. Because when all of that was going on, were people saying, oh yes, okay, I'll just pack up my things and go? Or were people resisting?
there was heavy resistance.
Oh, of course there would have been.
Shooting out, big shootouts. That's where you hear names like Mungunda. Yeah, big. I mean, some people even lost their lives during those days.
And it would have been witnessed by children and elders.
Yeah.
So there would have been noises associated with this.
All over, yes.
The noises are, I think, what I sometimes, the noises from across this global space, the noises of African people resisting, I think is something that comes to me like, how do you record that resistance? How do you record the pain of a person, a child who doesn't understand what's going on?
Right.
All of those things. Sometimes in certain conversations people say, well, if you have a conscience you would not do that, or how do you sleep at night? It seems to me that those people don't get kept awake by anything like this. They don't think it's horrific. They just think it's, oh well, we'll just go out and kill a few thousand people and then we'll go home and have dinner.
Yeah, because they believed Africans, they don't have a soul.
Right.
So if these Africans don't have that, then they are just like these animals, that you find.
Right.
And whatever you do to an animal or bird or whatever, is justified because you are a human being. The other one is not.
I think that's a really important point, because as an African-centered scholar, one of the things I say is that spirit is primary. That we have a spirit. There's a dimension of us that is not seen, but it is very much a part of who we are. And we give thanks, and we have ritual and all of this kind of thing. So if Europeans have treated us like this in the past, and they're not so obvious with it, there's still an underlying notion in their consciousness and unconsciousness that we have no spirit, we have no soul, and therefore treating us any way they like is justifiable because we don't have an aspect that they obviously think that they have, which they obviously think makes them superior.
Yeah.
Yet if you look at the history, you'll see that their behavior is inhumane.
Right.
And anyway, hue means color, from what I understand. But that's a whole nother story. Thank you for sharing that, because I'm trying to absorb a lot of what I didn't know, or even though I've heard about the scramble for Africa in Lille 1884, that when you hear figures and when you hear words, it's still not the same as actually going to the place and feeling the energy of the place and hearing from people who have lived it what it was. It is not just something in a history book. This is very much a part of today. The legacy of it exists today.
Right.
The consequence of it exists today, and the unearned privilege of being white exists today. So I really don't subscribe to the idea, and people don't understand this necessarily, but I don't subscribe to the idea that I must forget.
No.
And I even have an issue with forgiving.
Because these guys, if they get a chance, they will do it
They'll
again.
do it again. They'll do it again.
Even worse this time, because now they know.
Yeah. I think we have to be vigilant. I'm very clear. So, I know that people I know move very closely with Europeans.
Yeah.
Move very closely with them. and we must interact and we must engage because we're living in the same space. And
Right.
but we must have due regard for one another.
Correct.
And those of us who have been offended by them must continue to be cautious.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, first of all, I don't care.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think it's folly to act like it never happened. It's absolute folly. I don't skin up or grin up with people. I may be laughing at the same thing you're laughing at periodically, but I can't go to sleep in your company for long periods of time because I don't know what you'll do.
Right.
You know, I have no idea what you do. I know what you've done, so I know what you're capable of.
Here we have seen many skulls being returned from Germany. You might have heard that story. Skulls.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Being returned now from Germany. Many skulls.
Skulls are being returned.
Yes. Of our people whose heads were chopped off.
So who's returning the skulls?
German government.
What is that about?
Because they were cutting off our people's heads.
Right.
You see, what I tell the people is that, you know, and then there's this thing that they say scientific. There can be no scientific. It was payment. I tell myself, and I believe it is true. These white people were being given money. If you go to Germany or you register somewhere that, you know, you killed a black guy, and here is his head.
Yes.
You see, they will give you something.
Yes. I believe these systems exist. I do. I think these systems are very well hidden.
Yeah.
So to find the evidence of it is challenging, and so, you know, of course they will say no, that's not the case. But periodically people are exposed, or you find out that this actually did happen.
Yeah.
But the system is so well established and so organized to cover up its own brutality
that's right.
that even when you see what you see, they'll say you did not see what you saw.
That's right. I mean, how can somebody who talks about God, you know, on whatever day, and then here is this person coming with a skull of another human being, which was cut off. And it is
they
not
have no
one
conscience.
It's not one skull, but many skulls. And they would force the women to clean this, you know, they cut off your head, your husband's head. They tell you to clean that head, remove the hair and everything.
So it's further trauma, really. You've not only seen the trauma of your loved one being murdered, they bring, I mean, what manner of being does that?
There's no explanation.
And it's just, if it was us doing this, they would have a whole theory, and you know, there'd be a whole part of somewhere that they put us because well, you know, I do believe that in the same way the good you do lives after you. I think there's something called karma. Some of these things I find interesting concepts because karma is also, I think, polite. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you have done me wrong, and in time wrong will be done to you. I actually am feeling rather impatient.
Yeah,
I don't want it to happen.
I don't believe in those karma things. We just have to control these white people. This is what you did.
Yes.
And this is what we are going to do.
Yes.
About what you did.
Yes. And we know what you did. We know what you did. And I'm not going to say, well, oh, they're there. Let me not discuss it because it's not polite. There's nothing polite about what you have done.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to forget, and I don't want you to think that I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be an elephant in the room and we don't talk about it. I want our young people to know that part of the reason they don't achieve their full potential is because there is a system in place designed to keep you outside or keep you from achieving your fullness or being rewarded. So you can do the same work as someone else and you will get less. So how can you build a foundation in the same way when you have the same capacity, the same competence, but you don't get the same reward?
All these areas that you see,
right?
These are these fenced areas.
This is what areas?
These fenced areas.
Fenced.
Yeah, you see the fence.
Oh yes.
Beyond the fence, those areas belong to white people. Those are their farms. Chase away the same chasing they did there.
This is stolen land, what you're saying?
Yeah, this is
stolen land.
Yeah.
And what area is this? What do you call it?
We are going into Okahanja.
But where are we now? Is this?
It's between Windhoek and Okahanja.
Okay.
Okahanja is the next town.
Isn't it interesting how a people can just decide to take land, fence it, and then tell you can't go there?
This is what it is.
It's stolen land. It's stolen.
It is.
And if anybody is found on that land,
you are arrested. During those years, even now they will still shoot you.
They shoot you.
Yeah. Say you are poaching, so you must be shot.
Okay. All right. Well, my journey continues. I'm discovering on a personal level what has happened to us, so that it's not filtered through media houses that have a Eurocentric nuance or lens, or an interest in making Europeans look good or bad, or let's just tell the truth, and everybody can make their own judgment. So that I'm not trying to hate on anyone. I just want the truth to be revealed, and then we'll decide, and individually we can decide. And even the books that are written by the very people who oppress, marginalize, and are criminals. They steal, they kill, they're murderers. The books are typewritten, and the illustrations look very attractive, and you can get a paperback copy or a hard copy, and you get an ISBN number, and all of these new technologies to make the horror story more palatable, to create a myth, so that everybody who is associated with the horror does not feel terrible. The only people who are to feel terrible are the ones who read it, understand it, and then have a new level of consciousness. That's why things like Roots and other dynamic storytelling or explaining, in terms of the industry media, when these things are shown, it has an impact on people. It has an impact on African people in particular, especially those who didn't know, and then they know because of the movie. The first thing may be disbelief, and then they slowly, perhaps, they absorb it, and then there is this deep hurt, and you see everything very differently. It's interesting because we're the only people who, as Dr. Joy DeGray-Leary says, she usually speaks about African Americans, but I don't think we can limit this conversation to America. We're traumatized and we're brutalized and we don't get therapy. It's just, I'm really on that healing journey. Let us know what happened. Let us stay focused. Let us continue moving forward. And if we have to cry, let's cry. There's nothing wrong with crying. Why is it okay to laugh and not okay to cry? If somebody hurt you and you have an emotion, you should cry. And let us find ways to heal ourselves. I don't want to go to anyone who doesn't look like me, who brings up a memory of the ones who have committed the offense, and rely on them to make me feel better when they could never possibly understand what I've been through. I think I should stop now because there's so much to say and we can only take it in bite-sized chunks. It's a lot. We give thanks for the opportunity to learn and share and grow and teach and learn. Give thanks.